here back? We're actually going to begin this thing very soon. So people ought to come in who are going to come in, and everybody else has to go home. That's the rule.
We're going to begin the program. If you can hear me, come into the room or look around for the closed circuit TV. You can see this in 2 other places. Come on in. There, Barbara. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then we're going to have a wait for Penn and Rachel.
All right, but let's wait till it quiets down a little bit. If people want to come in, they should come in. It's also going to be on closed circuit TV out there, if people don't want to stay in here. Where are Ken and Rachel? Gayla?
We have a program we hope isn't too long for you. I'm Judy Tilson, and I'll be co-hosting this.
I'm Ron Rosenbaum, and I'm going to be co-hosting it. Can somebody remove this man? This is, for people who don't know, this is also going to be broadcast on closed circuit for the people who can't come in. But we would ask people if they can be kind of quiet out in the bar, or we'll have to shut the doors so people in here can hear, because people have some very important things to say about Ken. This is not a night for maudlin speeches, as I think you're all going to hear. Before we begin, we want to introduce really the person as much as anybody else who actually made this wonderful event tonight happen.
Wait. Before we do that, just give us a minute.
You want to do it? Okay.
I think before we do that, the very first thing is we should find out why we're all here.
Why are we here?
Well, why are we here?
I don't know.
There's really 2 people we're honoring tonight. That's how I see it. We're honoring Ken Tilson and we're honoring Rachel Tilson, and we need them up here.
Good point. I don't want to kiss you. I want to kiss you. Thank you very much. I feel better already. Yeah, it wouldn't have happened without those 2, but it also wouldn't have happened without one other person. He's my partner, so I'm somewhat probably prejudiced against him, but Bill Tilton really was the moving force behind this event. No. He can't come up here yet. I've got to introduce him real quick. He's a guy who's known Ken forever. They met way back in the 60s through Morrill Hall in the Minnesota 8. Bill was a defendant, and Ken was his lawyer, and Bill did maximum time. But that's, I guess, probably not that important. But in any event, Bill really considers Ken to be a friend. He considers him to be a mentor, almost a father figure, and Bill finally found a way to make a buck off Ken, and that's actually why we're here tonight. So, Bill, wherever you are, why don't you come up here?
This whole thing was sort of precipitated by the fact that Ken, who's always been the first name on the lease, who's always been the first name on the West publishing contract and the first name on the Viacom telephone contract, he says he doesn't want an office downtown anymore. So that's why we got to raise money. He's leaving his downtown office just to work at Hamlin Law School with George full time. So we didn't quite know what to do, so we figured we'd have to raise some money. And you got to give generously because everything's in his name. All right, we just figured it was time to roast him because he'd been around so long. There were so many people who loved him that if we waited any longer, we couldn't find a hall big enough in St. Paul to hold his party. All right, now we're here to give him some shit tonight, okay? Right? We'll save the teary-eyed stuff for 30 years from now when he dies. So I don't have, you know, this is not sort of he taught me things, important things like it's much harder to defend the guilty because he taught me that when he represented me. One of my favorite Ken Tilson stories is, and this has to do with vacations. He said, you can't put up all those photos because people think I did nothing but go on vacation. Well, in fact, I office with him. He's been on vacation for 20, 25 years. He just has fun. But we did get him to the Biobío River in Chile. And one night, it was the boatman. It was the boatman wanted to have a smoke. Ken, of course, insisted that he wouldn't break the laws of his own country, even if he wasn't in another country. But he was the only guy with a pipe. So you know, never volunteer, Ken always volunteers. Here, you can use my pipe. Well, of course, he just stood around the circle and passed and passed and passed. And being as presidential as he was, even before it was time, he didn't inhale. But it was so funny to watch Ken the next morning sort of wake up and say, God, what a great time we had listening. I haven't slept like that in years. Sleeping on sand, you get that from somebody who didn't inhale. So Ken, no holds barred. We'll see you later.
I want to assure you all, although there is a lot of lawyers here tonight who know how to talk, we'll get them to stop. The next thing, however, isn't going to be a lawyer talking. We're going to hear from Barb Tilson and Gayla Ellis, who have been working together for many, many years. Barb is going to sing us some of her music. Gayla is going to show us some pictures. I want to tell you before they start that they're going to be in concert next Saturday, and they would like you all to know so that you could come and see them at 7:30, January 23rd at St. Martin's Table, Riverside and 20th in Minneapolis. And I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you also that Barb is teaching a creative children's music program at the West Bank School of Music. This is Barb Tilson. Talk to her if you want more information. You'll see a lot of the good stuff she does. And we'll got to set up for the slides. It'll just take about 30 seconds, so hang in there. Yeah. It's not heavy, it's just that things are falling off. Yeah. It's just that things are falling off.
Yeah, put that one there.
This is one of those happy, marvelous pieces of
Okay. This is a song that I wrote, and the photos come from many different places. From Gala's collection, from Dick Bancroft and Kevin McKiernan, and many anonymous photographers in the family and elsewhere.
Of reason, a flame burning bright, your passion, your courage, a beacon of light on the struggles for justice, the colorful threads weaving throughout the life you have led. When the red baiting fingers came at you, Huac, you never gave in, you stood up and fought back. How many fighting for freedom have you kept out of jail? You answered their call, you came without fail. To the black students sitting at Old Morrill Hall, to the young men resisting the horrors of war. You didn't stand alone, 'cause together we're strong. From My Lai to Baghdad, you have sung freedom's song. With your clear voice of reason, a flame burning bright, your passion, your courage, a beacon of light on the struggles for justice, the colorful threads weaving throughout the life you have led. With the Indian nations, you stood at Wounded Knee and fight nuclear poison spawned by NSB. Side by side with the workers, Hormel and P9. You defended the farmers to stop power lines. Fierce lawyer, gentle sailor, father and friend, there when you're needed, love without end. As we all sail, tossed on life's seas, your strength and your vision help us sail free. And your clear voice of reason, flame burning bright, your passion, your courage, a beacon of light on the struggles for justice, the colorful threads weaving throughout the life you have led. Flame burning bright, time after time, crossing the borders of nations of minds, warming your family, love never ends, in ever expanding circles of friends. Your clear voice of reason, a flame burning bright, your passion, your courage, a beacon of light on the struggles for justice, the colorful threads weaving throughout the life you have led.
it okay here?
This is yours.
Okay, the next person who's going to be coming up here is a slight change of pace. You all know who George Latimer is. George was the former mayor of St. Paul. He's probably one of the most charismatic people that's ever come out of this state. What a lot of people don't know, oh, we're not done yet. What a lot of people don't know is that Ken recruited George to come here and be his assistant, and with all the rumors that George is going to Washington, the rumor is he's going to return that favor and take Ken there as his assistant. Well, maybe we'll hear about that now.
Thank you, Ron. I'm here to speak in behalf of Ken Tilson, and I raise this one question on behalf of all of you. Who is he, and why the hell are we here? Anything coming from the cold, huh? I've been walking around here because I did come here. Rachel and Ken, 31 years ago, drove me through this very neighborhood and telling me about everything. Telling me that Roosevelt was a fascist. It's a wonderful crowd, by the way. It's really terrific. If a Bob fellow who played the politics of Minnesota would share 20 degrees to the front. And the IQ of both groups would rise by 20 points. Anyway, therefore, I've known Ken for 31 wonderful years, and I don't know anything about him. And therefore, I've interviewed a number of you, and I ran to a fellow out here. I said, hi, my name's, I'm the mayor here, and he said, hi, Mayor Scheibo, how are you? Sic transit gloria, folks. So I said, so what are you doing here? Do you know Ken Tilson? He said, no. He said, I'm a security person. I don't know who he is. He was wearing a gas mask. I don't know what his expectation was. I can only tell you that no one I know in all the 31 years I've been here has enlisted for more causes that he understood nothing about, but cared passionately about. I mean, do not bother me with the facts. I'm on the side of truth and justice. And if you don't agree with me, you're dead. Anyway, that's about the end of my notes, and therefore, Bill Tilton told me not to get mushy. There's no way I can get mushy about much. I mean, the man, I don't know, and whatever is happening in the world, he's not happy about. That is true. And that's the heart of Ken Tilson. Things have got to change. Right now. And I want to live long enough, and now, by the way, he's, as you know, I might be going off to Washington town, and I've devoted most of my adult life to the great law school, and he's now teaching there. And I just want to tell you, he and I are totally devoted to Hamline Law School. Hamline Law School. I'm very sorry. In any event, I want to be here 30 years from now when you quit changing change. I want both of us to be here and say, okay, we got it right, hold it right there. Ken Tilson, good luck to you.
The next person is another person half the room, I think, has been represented by Ken at one time or another. And this guy won, so he's still here. This is a gentleman that I think many of you know, and he's a wonderful person. He was one of our clients, and he's got some things to say about Ken. Rene Hurtado.
How many years ago? I don't remember how long ago. But somebody told me, Ken is going to be your lawyer. And I said to the person who told me, is he an immigration lawyer? And the person said, no, he's not. Well, you know, I was starting to think about that when George was telling that he represents people who he doesn't know anything about, you know. And, you know, and because my situation was very dangerous, if I went back to my country, I could be killed at the time, you know. And I thought, well, but how somebody who doesn't know anything about immigration will represent me? Well, but that's only the beginning. About a year ago, my situation got a little difficult again. And we went to Washington. Congressman Sikorsky told us that he was going to try to get something in order to stop myself from being deported to my country. Well, he arranged a few meetings. And we went to talk to Congressman Barney Frank from Massachusetts. Well, for a moment, I was very scared, you know, because he was arguing with Barney Frank. And he was supposed to, you know, to be nice to this congressman. In order, you know, to be able to convince the person that I wasn't a criminal, I wasn't a terrorist, anything like that. But he was starting to get angry at him. And they both were arguing. And I said, come on, Ken, you know, don't do that to me. Well, this is how I know this man. You know, he's a very nice man. But the last thing that I want to say is that we were in the middle of a meeting with Congressman, I don't know, Sabot or, no, not Sabot, the other congressman. Bento. When Ken told me, I need to get something for my wife. And I said, well, we are in a meeting right now. You know, but as soon as we get out of the meeting, he ran. He almost got hit by a car trying to buy something for his wife. Thank you.
The next person is another prominent Minneapolis attorney who Ken has been involved with on. They were the group that was appointed by Senator Wellstone to pick the nominees to be federal judge, and I think actually he may be making that announcement. This is Sam Kaplan. Maybe not.
We might need the buzzer. He's a lawyer.
I bring a different point of view here. See, most of you have known Ken for a long time intimately, and I've known him for a long time, but not so intimately. And it's only been in the last 2 or 3 months that I've really come to know and understand him. And I want to share some things with you that will explain something about him. Up until the time, I thought he was basically your ordinary garden variety radical, but now I've got a different point of view about that. People think that Ken was appointed to this committee because he had gotten Paul Wellstone out of the slammer a couple of times. But the truth of the matter is that Paul has been in jail so often, once or twice doesn't make much difference. No, actually, the process of selecting the committee was like this. Paul said, I think we need to have a committee. And he said, I think we should have 4 people. I said, that's a very good idea. And I said, I'll be the chair. And he said, all right, now who else should be on the committee? And I said, well, we need to have lawyers. They need to be honest. They need to be honorable. They need to be able. And they need to be quick-witted. And he said, well, Marcia Staton and Sandy Gardebring. I said, good choices. I said, I like that very much. Now I said, gender balance requires a man. He said, what were those words again? I said, honest, honorable, able, and quick-witted, and a lawyer and a man. He said, I don't know any. Now, as an aside, I might say he must have thought I was some kind of a snake oil or used car salesman. I'm standing there talking to him. He's telling me he doesn't know any lawyers like that. And I said, you don't know any? He said, don't know any. I said, well, look, let's lower the expectations here. Let's talk about somebody who can keep his mouth shut. He said, I don't think I know anybody. And I said, look, think about the person that you know the most embarrassing things about, who if he tries to blackmail you, you can respond with all of the things and all of the pictures you had. Boy, he said, Ken Tilson. Now, I want to give you some insights that some of you may not have, but this is a very, very careful study I've made. How he operates so effectively. Superman is not dead. Superman is Ken Tilson, not Clark Kent. What he does when he is on the trail, when he is on a cause, there's a physiological change that occurs. The very first thing that happens is that his bladder becomes ironclad. And he never goes to the bathroom when I am in the room for fear I'll say something he should hear. I know you will regard this to be politically incorrect, but you know, ladies go to the bathroom together. Ken asked me now, are we ready to go now, Sam? And his stomach becomes ironclad. He eats cookies. I mean, that's what he eats. Morning, noon, and night, he eats cookies. And some of the cookies he serves in his office are perfectly dreadful. But I want to tell you something. I want to tell you about my secretary, Barbara Miller. The first time I went to Ken's office, he said, would you like coffee? And I said, sure. And he said, okay, I'll get you some. I said, okay, maybe your secretary? No, he said, and all of these, no. He said, in all of these years, I am not comfortable asking anyone to get me coffee. I said, how about donuts, I said. He said, I'll buy them. I'll do it. Now he comes over to my office. Now, I have very little latitude in my life between my wife, Sylvia, and my secretary, Barbara Miller. I mean, basically, they tell me what to do. So he came over, and Barbara said, would you like coffee? And he said, yes, I'll get it. She said, no, you won't. She said, I'll get it for you. He said, well, I'm not, she said, Ken, I'll get it for you. I want to tell you that by the end of this process, you think of him as this great radical. He's soft and he's middle class. She's bringing him coffee. She's bringing him pop. She's bringing him popcorn. She's taking care of him. She's catering to his every little whim. One last comment I want to tell you. The only question that we ask every candidate, only one question, and I'll share that with you, and that is that we ask, is there anything that we should be concerned about that would be embarrassing in an FBI investigation, anything that would be troublesome to the senator. And who was it who asked the question? A man with an FBI file taller than I am. It's been a wonderful experience.
I have to do this because since Bill Tilton was the primary organizer, he gets a number of different slots where he gets to come back. So, but before we bring him back for a minute, there are a lot of people here, but there are a lot of people who are not here from different parts of the country. And I won't read all their names, but just Mayor Fraser wrote something, Youssef and Jean M. Jenny, and I do want to read a letter because it's a very nice letter, and I think it has some meaning for Ken. It's from John Eisberg of the Robbins firm. Dear Ken, I am indeed sorry that I will be unable to be at your roast on Saturday, January 15th. Most unfortunately, it conflicts with our firm's St. Paul Christmas party. That's what it says. Had I been asked to speak at your roast, which of course I was not, my comments would only have added to the glowing tributes that are deservedly yours. My earliest days as a lawyer with this firm after moving here from Missouri were illuminated by your asking me to serve as one of the counsel for the infamous group of communist sympathizers and others who were subpoenaed before HUAC. I remember my initial reaction, my God, there's a liberal commie in the firm. I've come to the right place. What was so astonishing to me was that you, among all the witnesses, had no intention whatsoever of following that advice and would testify fully and openly before the committee. To me, as a young and idealistic lawyer, it was an act of bravery and courage. Whatever the issue and whomever the client, you have been undoubtedly willing to pursue justice regardless of the personal sacrifice. There have been few lawyers in this community who have been willing to test the bounds of authority as you have, and fewer still who have been successful as you have. In my opinion, you are the finest embodiment of what Robert Frost must have meant when he wrote that two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I wish you'd continue success and continued years of fulfillment. Respectfully, John Eisberg. It's really a nice letter, but I think it's somewhat tainted by the fact that there was a bill that was enclosed. I don't know, we're supposed to pay that or whatever. Anyway, Bill Tilton has got something he wants to read here.
I don't want that. I have to use it. It doesn't work. That doesn't work. What we paid for this? What Ken paid for this sound system? Bill Kunstler sends his regrets. He's in a murder trial, and he's a dear friend of Ken's. Whenever he comes to town, he's staying there. You can't shut him up. And we figured, all right, he's Bill Kunstler. We're going to give him some time anyway. He wrote a poem for Ken. And it's nice. Too nice. There's nothing like a Minnesota roast to stimulate our hidden levity. It's somehow different from a routine toast, which suffers from excessive brevity. Tonight, we're hardly limited for words to tell the world how much we love our Ken. Like you want me to start over. And how we know he's not one for the birds and worthy of our best collective pen. He may have moved some miles east of St. Paul to where the lovely St. Croix River flows, but every weekday morn from fall to fall, he westward turns his freedom-loving toes. From old New York, my greetings I do send to my eternal colleague and my friend, William Kunstler.
The things that were sent in, both the ones we're reading and the ones we don't have time to read, will be out at the tables. So if you couldn't hear every word, you can go read it.
Okay, this is not working? No? All right. Well, this one is funny. This is from Kevin McKiernan, who some of you know and some of you have heard of. He continues to be sort of a freelance reporter. He's doing work for Newsweek and NBC and just got out of Iraq, he tells me, about a week and a half ago. And he wasn't able to come here. He lives in LA now. He won a number of awards for his coverage of Wounded Knee. And I asked him to pen a roast. And I wish I could have written this. A reporter's thoughts on the Ken Tilsen roast. In this line of work, nothing can count quite so much as somebody who is willing to vouch for you. Even a single word can do the trick. In journalism, especially with sensitive stories, access is everything. Convincing the palace guard to let you pass gets a score of 90%. Interviewing or photographing the king or queen is easy by comparison and rates only 10%. My first strong memory of Ken Tilsen coincides with the Wounded Knee occupation 20 years ago. It was early March 1973, and I had walked into the offices of Ramon Rubidoux in Rapid City. The place was in crisis, wasn't it always? Jam-packed with Wounded Knee supporters and legal workers. Lots of tension in the air, genuine fear of infiltrators, some paranoia. Looking around the room, I vaguely recognized Ken. We'd worked briefly and unsuccessfully to get a draft resistor released from Sandstone Prison in 1969. But I didn't know anybody else. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know who I was and why I was there. Somebody just plain told me to get out. My only protection, or so it seemed, was the pervasive sense of chaos. After all, the rules for inclusion in those days were loose and illogical, to put it mildly. But still, all those penetrating eyes, all those questions, I mean, when push comes to shove, how do you justify yourself? Then, in the midst of it all, Ken stood up. There must have been 40 people in the room, and they all got a bit quieter. At last, I thought, some help. But it wasn't what I expected. I don't know anything bad about Kevin McKiernan. That's all Ken said. Then he sat down. Nothing bad about me? Talk about being damned with faint praise. Give me a break. I could hardly believe the recommendation. Yet somehow it seemed to work. No more long stares. I wasn't the focus of things any longer. The group returned to talking business. It had only taken a few words, almost like some kind of quick surgery. I had been de-spied. Soon after, I went back inside Wounded Knee, this time to stay. Over the course of the next 2 months, I'd see Ken only when he'd come barreling through the federal roadblocks on those breakneck round trips from Rapid City to bring us news, advice, and once, some fresh film and tapes to keep me working. In the court trials that followed over the next few years, we had different jobs, but I felt a growing sense of respect, then affection for him, for Rachel, and for the family. It's 20 years now. I've seen Ken on the front lines in a lot of fights. He'd be a good one to be with in a foxhole. In fact, thinking back to that 1973 day in the Rapid City office, I'd like to repay an old compliment. I don't know anything bad about Ken Tilsen. Kevin McKiernan, January 8, 1993.
You've heard from a couple people across the country who have sent things. Well, Maine sent a representative. So we're going to hear from the state of Maine now, Toby Hollander.
Actually, we sent 2 representatives. My wife, Lucky, is right there. We've been debating, and she's not a lawyer. I was trying to get her up here to do this, and I said, well, it's interchangeable. At one point in time, the FBI had us confused. They said Toby Hollander, also known as Lucky Hollander. And so I said, why don't you go up? Nobody will know the difference. But I got chosen, so I guess I'll do it. I remember, actually, it was quite some time before I actually met Ken, before I'd heard of him. And I actually heard of him in conjunction with 4 words which were often uttered at the offices of the Wounded Knee Legal Defense Offense Committee, which is Wickledock. And those 4 words were, oh shit, call Ken. And We uttered them many a time. And it wasn't always legal problems, believe me. And so I think a lot of those trials were all over with before I actually met Ken and walked around his office and saw just tons and tons of boxes of the Wickeldock files. I said, oh, shit. And he taught me some very important lessons. And one of those lessons was to know when you're in over your head. And there was I was practicing law in St. Louis, and a defense committee there called me to represent a young black man who had been charged with a murder, actually had already been convicted, and I was going to take the appeal. And then they charged him with another murder. And I said, oh, shit, call Ken. And Ken, as he often did, responded. And he came down. We tried a couple cases together. And the other lesson he taught me was perseverance. That if you keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, eventually you'll win. And ultimately, I kept at it, and we got up into the Eighth Circuit and got him a retrial, and ultimately he was acquitted. And so Ken played a small part in it. I played a small part in it. A whole bunch of people played small parts, and it all added up to a victory. And that's one of the important lessons that he taught me. I know we're not supposed to be getting maudlin here, but I've told Ken that I'm not showing up for his funeral, so this is it.
One of the things about Ken and his 5 children is that they've all had more children. The grandchildren have written a song for their grandpa, and they're all going to come up here and sing it to you. They've written it, they've sat down with Barb and put it to music. There's not very many copies, because there's so many people here, of the words. Some of them are circulated. Try to look over shoulders, and you will be able to get copies of the words. So give us a minute while we set up for the kids. Hang on to this.
Excuse me.
Move over. I'm sitting in between.
All right.
All right.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Tilson, the oldest daughter of Ken's oldest son.
Yay!
And Rachel's. Don't forget her. He's been a really strong role model for me in my life, and I know he has for his other 16 grandchildren. They have created a very special surprise for him. Here are them and Kimberly Tilson, the oldest daughter of his youngest son, to tell you about it.
Hello. All of us grandchildren got together to write the song when Aunt Barb wrote the music. This is how we feel about our Grandpa Ken. We thought of all the ideas about Grandpa Ken and put them together and made a song. We met a couple of times to rehearse with 3 of our aunties. I just want to say thank you to Aunt Jossie, Aunt Judy, and Aunt Barb for all you did. We love you, Grandpa. I hope you enjoy this song. Thank you.
Get ready. 1, 2, 3. Grandpa sails on the water. Grandpa rides on the waves. He's part of the river. He's part of the sea. Grandpa's part of you and me. Grandpa's face in the wind with his dog on the bow. Grandpa knows the river and he teaches us well. He's our king of hearts. He's our ace of spades. So like a diamond in his glove, we won't fade. Grandpa sails on the water. Grandpa rides on the waves. He's part of the river. He's part of the sea. Grandpa's part of you and me. He's our ray of love and he's full of fun. If you need a lawyer, he's the one. Grandpa's full of love and he doesn't cry a lot. But if you get him going, it just might not stop. Sails on the water, Grandpa rides on the waves. He's part of the river, he's part of the sea. Grandpa's part of you and me. He's a fan of sports, he's a fan of games. He doesn't like dog racing and he protests racist names. Grandpa's eyes are like blue water, strong hands tight sailing knots, and gently rocking babies, his hands have held a lot. Grandpa sails on the water, Grandpa rides on the waves. He's part of the river, he's part of the sea. Grandpa's part of you and me.
You didn't get to kiss him. No. Later. Ken's oldest son, David Tilson.
Hi. Well, there's a kind of a joke about the male Tilson disease in our family, and because many of us kind of go around and sometimes we sort of forget the names of the people we live with and things. So all I really wanted to do tonight was introduce myself. Hi, I'm your oldest son, David, here. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce a man who I think has taught Ken a lot, and I think that's all I'll say about him. Clyde, are you close by? He's important to our whole family.
With all these attorneys and legal people around, I was wondering when us defendants were going to get a chance to say a few words. You know, Ken is currently representing the American Indian movement. That's the first time he represented me in court, and I'm not even a defendant. But they mistook me for a man who's 6 inches taller than me, doesn't wear a mustache, a year ago at the University of Minnesota. And in the heat of the attempts to unfold a banner condemning mascots and Chief of Lenawik, a Seminole Indian fellow was knocked to the floor face first. His teeth was knocked out, his arm was broken. That wasn't enough. one of the officers, a guy by the name of Gilchrist, hollered out, "Hey, we got Clyde Belcourt over here." And they went over and they started kicking the hell out of him. So I'm being represented in court today, and I'm not a defendant for the first time. I watched my brother Vernon tonight on national television receiving a Martin Luther King Award in Arizona. And he called earlier today to let us know that the Federal Bureau of Investigation called the committee of the Martin Luther King people that were given the award and said that this award should not be given because Vernon Belcourt was at Wounded Knee in 1973 shooting FBI agents when this, and Martin Luther King didn't stand for that, and this award shouldn't be given. My brother Vernon was never at Wounded Knee. I was the one that was there. He never came into Wounded Knee, so I'm going to have to make sure that Vernon and Mr. Mike Haney are around from now on to kind of run the interference for me. On a more serious note, I didn't come here to roast. I came here to toast. In Wounded Knee in 1973, about this time of the year, dead cold of winter, I was given the responsibility to call up attorneys. And I guess the reason why this responsibility was laid on me, that I had been arrested 45 times in a 4-year span of the founding of the American Indian Movement, and they must have knew I knew some attorneys. But the only attorneys I did know was 3 gentlemen here from the Twin City area: Doug Hall, Larry Leventhal, and Ken Tilson. And those were the three individuals I've called, and of course they have been representing us since. Represented me, and I'm very thankful for that, because I was one of the defendants of the Wounded Knee trials, and I understand that I was facing about 300 years in prison plus 2 life sentences. So I'm very thankful for the work of Ken Tilson and the whole family. And we've always felt that this family has been part of the movement. Of the family, I've probably known, besides Ken here and his wife, Mark and David the most. So I'd like to ask Madonna Thunderhawk, who is out here, to come up here and help me make this presentation at this time. I'd like to ask Ken and just please stand looking this way here in front of the podium. On behalf of the American Indian Movement, and particularly those that you have defended, you have always responded to our calls, our phone, and have put countless hours in defending the struggle that we are in today to retain our treaty rights and the right to self-determination. On behalf of the American Indian Movement and the many families that you represent, we'd like to present you with this beautiful star quilt at this time. Thank you.
Most of you know that I am Ken's daughter and that I am an attorney, the only one of his children who are, and that I am a prosecutor. I run into a lot of defense attorneys in my line of work. I run into a lot of prosecutors in my line of work, and many people ask me, "Are you related?" I say, "Yeah, Scott's my cousin." Scott, come on up. Scott Tilson. He's not a prosecutor. I put you out of order because of this.
Sorry.
They didn't warn me about this. You know, it's kind of hard when he's your uncle and you're a lawyer also. And my first memory, well, the reason I'm afraid of dogs is because they had a dog named Pax. Obviously, Pax would be their dog's name. It's a Great Dane about this tall, and I was about this tall. And I'm afraid of dogs because this dog scared me. That's my first memory of my Uncle Ken. The other main memory I have is that my father always called me Ken because it's kind of a Tilson thing that we forget names. And so my father calls me Ken often. But that's okay. I call my son Jim, which is my brother's name, a lot too. Yeah, right. Right, my son's name is Sam. Thanks. So, I mean, those are pretty much my childhood memories, and I'll skip the fishing stories for you. And then I went to law school. And the first impression I had in working in a law office is I went to work for my Uncle Ken at $200 a month, which was generous. And my Aunt Rachel was sort of his secretary at the time, and she'd walk in and say, "I won't type this. It's no good." I mean, she didn't like what he wrote, so she wouldn't type it. But I didn't really know what to tell you about my Uncle Ken. And this afternoon I was sitting and waiting for a jury, and so I went to the Westlaw computer and put his name in the computer, and I have a printout of the Minnesota Court of Appeals cases and the 8th Circuit Court of Appeal cases with his name. I took out the ones with my name. The famous movement, when he was protesting against the war in Korea back in 40 years ago or whatever, the first Ken Tilson case in the Court of Appeals, I want you to know, is, I'll find it here in a second, it's a will contest. Anyways, the remainder man was complaining about the trust, and you don't want to hear about it, but he lost. But he moved on. He had a slip and fall case that he won. And then he won he and George Latimer, oh, they lost a wrongful discharge case, I see that. And then he won a dram shop wrongful death. Anyway, you see his career develop, and it's he was great at condemnation cases. Condemnation is a big field for him in the Court of Appeals. And then there was this war back in the 60s, and you go to the federal courts, you leave the state courts for a second, and there's these three guys, Turchik, Beneke, and Kroenke, whose names and Ken's name are in the Court of Appeals books, and he lost all those cases. But they were, I'm trying not to be serious, it's hard, but they were good fights anyway. When I started in the Federal Public Defender's Office, people were very upset because they all remembered Ken Tilson. And they said, who is this guy that was hired? And they were not happy. Ken did not leave warm feelings in the federal family behind him. Am I going? Moving along? Okay. They tell me I'm supposed to go faster, so I'll speed through the wounded knee years, and I'll skip the power line cases. One more story. One last thing. Oh, one more? One more. When he did the power line cases, if anybody remembers the power line cases, I was in law school. He called me in his office and closed the door. He said, those idiots that work for the power companies are going to dismiss the cases. Now, Ken had been working for hundreds of hours for nothing, for the cause. But they're going to dismiss the cases, and they're going to have to pay attorney fees. $340,000. Later, in the Supreme Court of the state of Minnesota, they said that was a fair fee for, I wrote a quote down, just a minute. We also note that Tilson's, what does it say now? Simultaneous representation of approximately 170 landowners was no simple feat.
I don't really know how to introduce these women, but I'm going to have to because Ken doesn't know their names. By the way, we discussed at length whether or not to even hand out name tags because many of us don't like them, but please wear your name tags or Ken won't know it. The women that are coming up here have worked with Ken for many years. He won't know who's who. I like these women. Here they are.
Ken, that was a first, and you did it damn well. That was great.
That's it?
That's it.
Without rehearsal. Spontaneously.
20 years? 20 years later.
Scott, did you want us to publish this, or do you want to just take it with you? Put it down here. The next person, again, is somebody who everybody knows, and people know him through various things over the last 20 or 25 years. Marv Davidoff. We worked with Marv a little bit on his presentation, but the most difficult part is to convince him that he's not being honored himself tonight. But I think we'll be able to do that. So there you go, Marv Davidoff.
Thanks. Thank you. Right. Well, I'm going to try to be brief. Some people, and not drop too many names, Rachel. Some people call me an oral historian. Some people call me an anal historian. I remember all the details. Some people call me a Jewish Indian. Not much bread, a little diabetes, and an old car. But I want to tell just a couple of stories. Ken was involved with all of these, and Rachel also. I see our good friend Matt Ward out there. Matt, will you stand up from the power line struggle? One of the leaders. And Kenny represented Mark Tilson, not Mark Tilson, Mark Wernick. Mark Wernick represented the farmers very creatively. You know, when the surveyors came to the Warda farm, they sat in a truck. Hot summer day, the windows open, smoking cigars. They knew there was going to be some trouble. And then they saw Matt come down with, I think, a tractor and something on a flatbed. He pressed a button, half a ton of horseshit went through their windows, and their cigars were smashed. So there was a lot of humor in the power line. I want to... bipartisan, Perpich, Anderson, all the same, in a way. At any rate, a couple of stories about Honeywell, because I see the chief is here. I remember Kenny standing there with the Lawyers Guild legal observers. We went over and sat down on a bench where Chief Boza was sitting. And I remember saying to Chief Boza, Chief, do you see that young woman over there with a baby? They were the first two to be busted. Her name is Carol, his name is David. Boza immediately said, that ain't a baby, that's a midget. We've been looking for him for 10 years. Last story, These are true stories. Last story I want to tell, to be brief, is that I used to go out and check with Rachel and Ken the political situation. They wanted to relax at the river, and I was with this obsessive shit, you know, coming out there bothering their weekends. But at any rate, we checked out what about Honeywell? We may turn to a campaign of civil disobedience. They both had the appropriate questions around it. Later, some years later, Ken wrote a very provocative paper challenging the way that we did civil disobedience. Good food for thought, something that had to be confronted. But the story I want to tell concerns 1985 or 1986. There were hundreds of people there in front of Honeywell headquarters, and there was an arrest zone. They had fenced themselves in. But the chief brought city buses to put us on, and maybe 275 people were on the buses already. There were legal observers. Among them was Ken, and Chief Lieutenant Lutz illegally arrested 50 people, including Ken. He had 2 appointments that day and was trying to struggle with them. That was very, very serious. He got on the bus that I was on with 50 other people, and everybody cheered like crazy, thinking he had done it with us. They illegally arrested Phil Bush, who's the judge. These guys got trouble from the Board of Professional Responsibility, and then Chief Boza dropped the charges. At any rate, you're our Clarence Darrow, and we love you.
All right. Wherever there's a wanted man here, Bruce Moffatt, who's knows Ken from the Hudson Dog Track and among other things, and Bruce has been practicing his presentation for maybe 2 or 3 weeks now, and Bruce, give him hell.
Get a drink. I've got to set up the
Don't get a drink.
But come back, because this is a great slideshow.
to get these lights off up front here.
You need these lights
Just
off.
up front, yeah.
I got the lights.
Here.
How long is it?
About an hour and a half. No, here, wait. It's on rollers. Here, move.
Yeah, there's supposed to be some tape on it. Well, actually. So go off here where you want it.
Yes.
I got it.
There's supposed to be 3 here.
This must be the back one right here.
Are we all right?
I think so.
Bruce. Move it back.
Bruce. I'll go back with the table a little bit.
Move the projector closer.
Now go back further.
Go back a little bit further. That's good. That's good right there. Can't see. Huh?
Can you be on the floor? Is half the house as far away as you can.
When I got here to first set this up, I realized that it would be the first time I ever gave a presentation on my knees. I want to first say that thank you to Rachel. She gave me the opportunity to go through about 6 boxes of photographs of the family's collection. Ken should be worried at this point in time because this is the cover of his baby book in 1927. I think it was very evident early on in Ken's childhood, through the glow in his eyes, that this was a great man and that success was definitely going to come his way. He was known to say, "Can you say civil rights, Mr. Rogers?" Many have is this working? Many have experienced Ken's overwhelming belief and sense of himself, and clearly there were times early on that this simply exceeded his good judgment. Early in his youth, he actually believed he could fly. All great men have style of their own. The rest of us just simply try and emulate them. I think you'll see this as the fashion across the United States now. In 1945, he models America's first post-war flowered necktie. I've heard a lot of people tonight express a lot of confidence in Ken. That hasn't always been the case. When he was trying to date the twins, they said, "I don't think he'll be a mover and shaker. Let Rachel have him." There are proud moments in everyone's life, and there's nothing more rewarding than a proud moment between a father and a son. This is law school graduation. Son, work hard, keep your nose clean. Someday you'll be the most well-known lawyer in town. Many of us know Ken did become the most well-known lawyer in town. All of us experience challenges along the ways. Sometimes that means lean times. This is Ken soon after leaving the Robbins law firm, shaving under the 3rd Avenue Bridge. The one thing that's always impressed me about Ken the most is that when the chips are down, he always finds a way. The man is forever resourceful. Here he's commuting to work after leaving the Robbins law firm. I've heard a lot of things about friendship tonight, and I know that Ken places great value and faith in friendship. Here he's known to say, "Relax, my buddy Bill Kunstler will have us out before morning." Many of you know Bill never showed. He had a TV interview that day. Ken never lacked supporters in his life. In fact, many of you are here tonight. He personally recruited many volunteers and never asked too many questions. Few of you know that Ken made contributions to the scientific community as well. Here, proof that hot air does rise to the top. As we all know, and it's been spoken to tonight, Ken is a man of great stature, always willing to defend himself. And here he says, "Very funny, I am standing on the bottom." Ken was generally the ones waking up the children in the morning. I sailed with Ken. His wake-up song, some of you may know, "Get up, you lazy people, it's time to exercise. You need a healthy body to fight those fascist guys." Shall we sing it once? Get up, you lazy people, it's time to exercise. You need a healthy body to fight those fascist guys. They say that all men are transformed through humility. Ken is certainly no exception. Here he asks himself at a quiet moment, what's more humbling, this bandage or these swim trunks? I've had the unfortunate experience of traveling in a car with Ken without qualification and exception. I know that he simply has the worst sense of direction of anyone I've ever been with. Ken visits what he thinks is the Minnesota State Capitol. I've experienced firsthand, and I know it's been spoken to tonight, that Ken is rather excessive in his enthusiasm. What is he going to do with all his free time? I don't think you have to worry. He has a hobby at home along the St. Croix River, hunting hot air balloons from the back deck. This is one of his first kills of the winter. Many times if the case wasn't dismissed, it was up to Ken to perfect what we call the art of the deal. Ken signs a life story film deal with Hollywood movie mogul. And over just a few years, the thing that Ken probably impressed me the most with was, no matter what you do, Bruce, practice, practice, practice. Ken practices his rest in peace pose. They say that luck favors a prepared mind, and I hope we'll give an applause. Ken lucked out and certainly married the right woman.
Switch battery on this thing.
Just in case there are some government agents and they think this is a subversive meeting, we've invited somebody to give everybody cover. So everything's copacetic, well, maybe not that good cover. Senator Paul Wellstone.
I'll wait till after you try. Not that good a cover, huh, Ron? Is that Ken and Rachel, I hope she'll, there's so many people here tonight. I came in and from visiting in Buffalo, we just got back, and I'm looking for my wife Sheila. She's here somewhere, and I hope she's gonna make it. Well, when we first came to Minnesota, I was about 25, teaching at Carleton College, and we went up to the courthouse, and in a civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience campaign against the war, we were all arrested, and Larry Leventhal and Ken Tilson came down to be our lawyers, and I heard about this people's lawyer, Ken Tilson, and I thought we were going to get good representation, but I noticed that in the 2 hours that we met with him, he spoke for 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. So I could never figure out how he could represent us since he never asked us what we did. And then I heard that this Ken Tilson and Larry Leventhal, I know, Larry, it's not your night, but you're included in this, were great lawyers, but they didn't get us off. Now, the next time I met Ken Tilson, he came down to speak at Carleton College. Maybe my good friend Cy Schuster helped me invite him down then. And Ken came down, and he gave a 4-hour lecture on participatory democracy and the importance of people taking more control over their own lives. I mean, you all know him well, right? I mean, he's a great guy, but he never listens to you when he's talking to him. He's always getting ready. Then, here I'm thinking, Paul, I know you're going to run for the Senate. I'm planning this out years ago, you know, getting arrested all the time. That's a great way to do it, right? So, we get arrested again, Paynesville, with farmers. Didn't want to, you know, but you jump on the top of a table and give a speech and say, we're staying here with the farmers until there's justice, but the bankers aren't reasonable. And then it's closing time, and people look at you and say, what are you going to do? And either you can say, hey, you guys fight for justice, see you later, or you stay. Well, this time get arrested, and I'm really excited about this, because we're going to go to trial, and I can see CBS and NBC National News, and I'm ready with my Eugene Debs speech. It's not I who's on trial here today. It's the first bank system. I'm ready. But lo and behold, who do you think the farmers invite to represent them? Ken Tilson. So I know I'm never going to get a chance to say anything. But I got to admit on this one, First Bank System, they got worried about this guy too, and we got off on that one. They backed out. Well, I know nobody's supposed to be serious, and I would imagine some other people were, though, maybe. I just would say this. When we start out on that Senate race, and, you know, I would say the pricklings in my fingertips tell me that we can win, and then everybody was rolling on the floor laughing. I knew we were in trouble, you know, I knew we were in trouble. I mean, even my best friends were in the floor laughing. Ken and Rachel invited Shill and I to come and stay with them, and I remember that Ken took me out in that boat that he loves, and they took us out to dinner, and he gave us the friendship and the support. Ken is a Clarence Darrow. He is a great people's lawyer. He is a real hero to me. He's a real hero to all of us. And we love Ken and Rachel very deeply. And I am very, very honored to be here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. One of Dad's oldest friends I've known since I was born. Herman, are you in the room? I remember when I used to hide out in Herman's car so I could go home with him because I was confused as to who my father was. I couldn't remember names either. Herman Schuckman.
I want to apologize. I was never a defendant. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have all the words. And because I didn't want to hire Ken as my friend and a lawyer, I decided I'd better write my words down so that I wouldn't be misquoted later. So I have a slight poem. I've never seen him stalking in court or heard him settle a tort. But I have watched him worriedly gathering his might to defend the Bill of Rights. Sleepless nights followed by agitated days, his searching for the very best ways to ensure that justice works in the light of day, but not lost in the dark of yesterday. Though fearless in the face of facts, it's passion that often rules his acts. Time and energy are endlessly unreeled when he goes off to conquer the field. But when we sail, and we do, those same forces are unreeled. The jib needs tightening, or the results will be frightening. That far-off island must be one we seek. The compass reads 83 degrees. It's crucial that we be disputees. To be right or wrong, even from a distance so long, is hardly vital. For the contest itself awards no title. Absence of a contest would leave neither one at rest. The challenge is the thing it makes heart and mind to sing. His breakfasts, when we sail, are a work of art, as finely detailed as a brief, from which setting sail is the only relief. Years ago, when our kids were younger, we camped beneath the rain and thunder, building canvas fortresses against the rain, an unending task from which we could not refrain. We shielded our families from the strain of roughing it in the rain. Oh, what a primitive strain ran from those protective actions in the rain to the defense of Constitution, rights, and justice. But at sunset, we sang, brandy in hand, sending Ken's monotone across the land. For only he knew all of the words of songs old and new, including 75 verses of the Ballad of Dan McGrew. Long may you sing.
The next person is, I think many in the room know him. He's quite a man himself. I had the pleasure of defending this man with Ken Tilson when I was a baby lawyer. I just started practicing law, and Ken and I tried this case in front of a big crowd in Fergus Falls. And I was watching Ken to see what the master lawyer does, and I was actually in front of the jury with no clue what I was doing. And I got summoned up to the bench, and the judge handed me a note. Well, that drove Ken nuts in the first place, because I'm not supposed to be the one getting handed a note by the judge. Took the note and read it, and Ken was having conniptions over at his seat till I finally brought it over there. And then when he read the note, he literally started jumping up and down, because what the note said was, the court reporter likes your tie. Well, I thought Ken was going nuts. I thought Ken was going nuts because this is improper. This isn't what you do in court. The other counsel wasn't there. But Ken, when we first took the break, looked at me and goes, "What's wrong with my tie?" Paul Sobocinski. Paul.
Thank you, Ron. Well, I can take you back for a minute to 1985, the farm crisis. Some people remember that when we had 15,000 people here down in St. Paul, the steps of the Capitol, the coldest day back in January at that time. And in 1985, I was arrested at Fergus Falls, Minnesota, at a protest sale. And of course, what do you do as a group of farmers? Our property values were down 50%, and of course we had no money, so we called Ken Tilson. Senator Wellstone, who wasn't a senator at that time, helped arrange in the process and was very helpful. The first step in the process, and I had kind of studied up on this, is the first time I've ever been arrested. and a farmer, and a farmer's rather conservative. And here I was as a farmer, rather conservative, leading this group of farmers in southwestern Minnesota, saying we got to do something about what's happening to farmers, and farm families shouldn't be driven off the land. And so the first process was a jury selection. Well, one of the people that was that Ken didn't strike out, and we couldn't figure it out, my wife Candace, who's back here with me today also, was an elderly gentleman who couldn't hear very well. So she asked Ken, she says, well, how come you didn't take him out? His hearing's kind of poor. Yeah, but Ken said he's paying attention. Well, we got a third away into we got a third of the way into the trial, and he was sound asleep. My wife was starting to get nervous. So she says to Ken, what's the worst thing that can happen to Paul here? And Ken says, don't worry. And she says, but I am worried. We got a daughter that's 7 years old, and she's going to be in this Christmas play, and she's going to be an angel. Ken says, don't worry, there's no way, no matter what happens, even if he's found guilty, he'll be home for that. 3 days later, my wife was home, my daughter was home, I was in jail. But that's when Ken went to work, when it was tough. He always likes a challenge, as we all know. He finally managed to convince the judge that perhaps maybe we ought to have another little hearing on this particular part. And so we had another hearing, and the judge finally agreed to let me go home. Here I was, the foreclosure chairman of Minnesota Groundswell, speaking at all these rallies, trying to kind of keep people together and to keep speaking and talking in a peaceful manner, but yet bring our issue to the public. And the judge says, so Basinski, you can't talk. That's one of the conditions we're going to release you. You no longer can talk at a foreclosure sale. So that's when Ken went to work, went to the Minnesota Court of Appeals, and won that particular case. And so this is a toast. It was a victory for the farm movement in the sense that farmers had the right to stand up and speak. And then Ken finally took it one more step further and also took the Court of Appeals the fact that in the way in which I was tried in terms of the particular court. So he also cleared me. So on behalf of the farmers in southwestern Minnesota and the many, many people that you have stood up over the years, Ken, I want to say personally, thank you.
The next speaker is going to be Barbara Penn, who along with Bill and I think is probably going to be somewhat lost in that most of us have practiced with Ken in the same office all of our adult life, and if Barbara's not lost, she's a whole lot better than we are, because we will be lost. Barbara Penn.
I'm the token woman attorney who's been in the Ken Tilson offices over the past 15 years or so. Actually, I, with the other women in the offices over the years, have worked pretty hard with Ken, and I was appalled to learn earlier that over the past several weeks he's been corrupted in Sam Kaplan's office. So we're going to have to really work on him before the end of February, and I'm confident we'll get him back into shape. In 1977, when Bill asked me if I wanted to office with Ken, I thought it was a pretty good idea since he was one of the few attorneys I respected at that time. And so we went, Bill and I were with Ken on the 4th floor of the Minnesota building. It was kind of run down then, post-Wounded Knee, but we didn't care. What I didn't understand before I went was that there would be some risk officing with Ken. We used to talk that the phone lines might be tapped. That didn't bother me. What worried me was Ken's penchant for lighting fires. On a daily basis, Ken would take that pipe and knock the bowl of the pipe in the wastebasket, and with some regularity, I'd see him running by my office door with a flaming wastebasket. And I would be very grateful. We were on the 4th floor. It was an old building. The windows opened, and I knew I could jump onto the roof of the next building if worse came to worse. Another thing I learned is you couldn't rely on Ken in an emergency. For example, one day when I was accosting and confronting an intruder in my office, I was yelling at the top of my lungs at this guy, hoping to attract the attention of the others in the office to come and assist me. And they all came, except Ken, who was the closest. Ken never heard a thing, because if you know Ken, you know when he's working and concentrating, you cannot get through to him. The other thing I observed going into office with Ken is that he lunched daily with the boys. He'd go out to lunch with Bill. Tom Kaiser would come down from the Robbins firm, and I waited patiently for an invitation, and it never came. So after about a year, I walked into his office and said, Ken, is there a reason that we never have lunch? I mean, is it that you don't like me, or are you just sexist? And Ken looked at me in his inimitable way. He said, well, Barbara, of course we've had lunch. And I said, I've been monitoring the situation very closely, and we haven't. So I think we did lunch. I'm sure he doesn't remember it, nor do I. But what I do remember then is how he dealt with this issue, as he does with issues, in a very innovative and effective manner. He stopped having lunch altogether. It's really true that, except for an occasional lunch with his brother Bob, that man did not leave the office for about 10 years to have lunch. And I think if he retained his figure over that period of time, it was due to me. I was his personal Jenny Craig. Now, in 1988, when we decided to leave the Minnesota building, we went to look at other offices, and we looked at the 22nd floor of the American National Bank building, where we've been since. And I looked at the new building, and I saw the windows didn't open. And I saw in my mind's eye that Ken would be running by with the flaming wastebasket. And I worried. But, you know, by that time, even though I don't engage in hero worship, I knew that there was no one I'd rather go up in flames with.
Short introduction for another woman who's been trying to train Ken, Madonna.
I guess, to make a long story short, I was one of the, well, incidentally, maybe many of you don't know this, but 20 years ago, the first people to go on trial after the occupation of Wounded Knee were 4 women, and myself, and of course, you know, the media being, straight media being the way it is, nobody really knew that. But anyway, so we were facing, like, you know, several lifetimes. But anyway, I remember when I first met Ken Tilson, it was inside Wounded Knee. We were arrested, and at the first day, in fact, we were arrested, and taken to Rapid City, and the jail was full. My parents came and bailed me out, and the magistrate said, well, you can't go anywhere near the Pine Ridge Reservation. And he was talking to my parents like I was, 3 years old, like I didn't understand. He was saying, now you have to take your daughter home. She can't go anywhere near Pine Ridge, blah, blah, blah. So my mother was saying, yes, sir, So then we filled up the trunk with ammo, and they let me out. And my folks let me off, and so a few days later, my mother remembers. She's sitting there laughing the hardest. Anyway, so we're in Wounded Knee, and these firefights are getting heavy, and we knew they were bringing in APCs, and they were bringing in the heavy artillery, and we heard, the news came, the moccasin grapevine, that we had some attorneys, some lawyers that were coming in, and there was some negotiations going on and that type of thing. And I was walking, I worked at the, we called it first aid station, and I worked there, and I was walking across the road to the other building, and here was this man with this, dressed casual, and a nice sweater and a heavy jacket and a pipe. And he was just kind of like strolling along, And it was like in between. They were getting ready for this firefight. We knew it was going to happen. And that the, as soon as it got towards evening, and we never had enough ammo for, every time there was a firefight, after the firefight, we didn't have any ammunition after that, each time. So we were real worried. And of course, I had my son with me. He was 10 years old at the time. So I was kind of, real getting nervous there. And so here's this guy walking along. So I looked at him and I said, who are you? And he said, oh, hello. My name's Ken Tilson. I'm an attorney from Minneapolis. And I said, oh, you are? And he said, yeah. And so we were talking. And then he went like this. And he said, oh, well, I guess we're about ready to go. And I said, what? You can't go. He looked at me and he said, what do you mean we can't? I said, you're our protection. If you leave, they're going to open up on us and wipe us out, You can't go. So he stood there and he looked at me and he said, oh, well, okay. And I didn't know who Ken Tilson was. I had no dealings with, I don't know what I do here. Oh, I didn't have any dealings with the legal anything. I didn't know anything about anything concerning lawyers or the legal system or nothing. I just knew that Indians go to jail and that was it, But I didn't know who he was, and so and I was just talking to him like, well, you can't go, And if I wish I had a gun, I'd pull it on you. You can't go, So later on, after a few years later, when we were all on trial and stuff, I worked with the Winkledock committee, and helped out in whatever way I could, and I was really interested, mainly because there was all these people that came, all these attorneys that came, and legal workers and students, legal students, that were law students, that came on their own money, they came and stayed and they helped, and it was amazing to me because I never knew that. First time that ever happened to us, that we had these people that came, and I used to tune into Ken all the time because everybody just automatically, it was like Toby said, oh shit, call Ken. That was the the phrase. But I learned a lot from him, and to this day, when I talk to Ken, I don't call him Ken, I call him Mandamus, because he was, he was always saying, well, we'll just file a writ of mandamus, Yeah, we'll file a writ of mandamus. And I had no idea what that meant, I just said, all right, Ken said we're going to file a writ of mandamus, so yeah, that'll take care of it. And so, and pretty soon I just started calling him Mandamus, and I still do. And it's just like he's part of our lives. The whole family is, you know, and their children and their grandchildren. So it's just like, you know, we had to come because they're a part of our extended family out in South Dakota. Thank you.
Well, I stood up here in front of all of you and I've said I'm a prosecutor, and you can't get away without this lawyer talking a little bit too. I just have one story I want to share with you about what it's like to be Ken's daughter and be a lawyer and be a prosecutor. I was arguing a case with a public defender who I promised I'd say his name, Steve Peterson, supervisor in the public defender's office. And it was a case that involved a search. And Steve walked in and said, you're going to dismiss this, aren't you? And is it working? And I said, no, I have no intention of dismissing it. We were set for trial that day and doing the Rasmussen hearing to discuss the search. And he said, well, this is clearly illegal. We were in a room discussing it, and he got very angry with me for not listening to him. He got up, stomped out of the room, slammed the door, and screamed, you're adopted! I stood there for a minute wondering what to say. I then left the room, caught up with Steve, and stood beside him and just got onto his pace. So I was walking next to him. I said, Steve, I'm not adopted. And he said, I want blood tests. Well, he had also handed me some Supreme Court cases, and that had just come down, and I read them, and I thought, my goodness, he might be right about this. And I called a few people, and I went upstairs while we were waiting for the judge, and I said, Steve, I'm going to dismiss it. You should have seen his face. He was just glowing. And I said, look, I'm my father's daughter. I'm stubborn, but when I'm wrong, I admit it. He said, you were afraid of the blood test. I am my father's daughter, I am my mother's daughter, and I'd like to introduce my mother, Rachel Tilson.
You know, one of the neat things about getting together, which we seem to do in our family. We had Maridel's 90th birthday. That was a wonderful celebration. But the thing is that when we do this, it's just for all of us to celebrate each other. And, of course, I don't believe in having heroes. And, you know, I believe we should let the people we love be human. So I'm going to tell you a real true story about Ken. Well, Bill said I had to be funny. Is this real? It doesn't sound like, well, okay. A couple of years ago, Ken and I were playing bridge with our son David and his wife Barb. And Ken made a mistake. And that doesn't happen very often. So I really milked it, you know. How could you do that? And you should have done this, and you should have done that, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And he said, okay, goodbye. And I realized he hung up on me across the bridge table. So we use that a lot now. And it works, because he just hung up on me just like that. The other one is about being funny. I can't think of a lot of funny things, except that in the last recent years, Ken comes home and he's often very tired and he falls asleep. And then a long time later, I go to bed. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, he wakes up and he's very funny. And he's talking, and I know I'm answering him, And I know that I laugh a lot, and he's laughing. But I'm so tired by that time that in the morning I can't remember why it was funny. So I can't tell any of that. But the Ken's work and the times that I have worked with him, I've always been really pleased that he was the kind of lawyer where he always knew that his client was more important than he was. And I don't think, as far as I know, and I used to check on it, that there was ever an exception to that. That he didn't tell people how they had to dress. He always respected who they were and where they were coming from and what they had to say. And I think that there's a lot of new, younger lawyers like that today, and part of it is because of him.
Of course she wants to say one more thing.
Just one more thing. This isn't funny, but it happens that tonight is Martin Luther King's birthday. And I want us to, recognize that and feel it and feel how important it is to our country and to all of us sitting here.
If you're getting tired of sitting, we're almost done, but we can't do this without asking Bill Means to say a couple of words.
To let everybody know how we first met Ken, and that was in Rapid City during Wounded Knee days. That's whenever we decided that it was time to make a statement on behalf of people on the reservation and our treaty rights. This was back in the 70s when not too many people ever heard anything about treaty rights, or Indian people standing up for their rights, our land rights. And so we had quite a bit of action going that year, and we ended up in Wounded Knee. And of course, eventually there were over 500 people charged. And of course, they had a big trial here in the Twin Cities. And Ken, of course, was one of the main attorneys. But when we first met Ken, we were all in jail, of course, in Rapid City, South Dakota. So Clyde, he was kind of on the outside. So as he said earlier, we kind of depend on him to find some good attorneys. So there's Herb Paulus, and he's from Milwaukee at the time. He's in Oneida. And my brother Ted and myself, about 7 of us were in the cell upstairs in the Pennington County Jail. We had been arrested around Wounded Knee. And so we saw Ken coming in. And right away my brother, hey, you guys, check this out. So we all got up. Got in a 3-piece suit and a beard, and my brother said, he must be a communist. And Herb Paulus said, well, maybe he's Jewish. So that's, and then of course, we never saw a white attorney that would speak his mind to the judge without getting in contempt. Ken has almost an unbelievable, uncanny way of taking a judge to the edge, as most of you know. And believe me, this was revolutionary in Rapid City at the time, I'll tell you. And so Ken, one of the famous, what he used to do right away, because there's a lot of federal officials, you know, and we couldn't get him to do anything. So Ken, he started filing a writ of mandamus. It's probably most of the U.S. attorneys didn't even, they had to go back to the library to see how to write that up again. So Ken, he started getting a few federal officials moving, so that's how he got his Indian name, and that was, we called it Mandamus. So if you ever see some Indian people talking out in the Black Hills about Mandamus, you know they mean Ken Tilson. But I remember the last time I was here, my mother was here when we had a celebration like this. So on behalf of her and the rest of our family, we want to thank the Tilson family. We've all been pretty close through the years. Thank you.
The good news is you got to wait a little longer, Ken. But the good news for all of you is we are honestly almost done. But one of the requirements of this being organized by Bill is he got to speak 3 times. And he's only spoken twice so far. So the Bill Tilton quota is now going to be finished. And Bill is actually going to introduce Ken, who's actually going to talk, believe it or not. And I think Bill Tilton actually does deserve a round of applause, because none of this would have happened if Bill hadn't organized it.
Do we need a throne, or can you just walk up there? Okay. All right.
I know we planned this as a roast, but I got to do this, if for nothing else, for the tape that I hope is running. Is the tape running back there? All right. All I had to do was pick up. All right. Well, if my arms are long enough, I'll take them off. Ken Tilson was born 65 years ago, believe it or not, in New Leipzig, North Dakota. Anybody heard of this place? Leipzig. All right. Yeah, like I even know how to pronounce it. All right. He grew up in the Selbydale area of St. Paul. His father was the original of Tilson Homes, a fine tradition that has been carried on by his brother Bob and his nephew Jim. It's still going on. They're Minnesota's first builder of integrated housing in the Twin Cities, and they're making fine homes and doing good work still today. Ken was in the Navy in 1947. Outside of the prom ballroom at a protest against segregation at the prom ballroom, he met Rachel LeSueur. Right? 1940. This is the year I was born. He met Rachel Tilson. Right? They fell in love. They fell in love. And boy, the rest is history. And the history is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. 5 kids: David, Jossie, Judy, Danny, Mark. Right? Great people. They're all here, right? They're all people who are just wonderful people who love their dad and their mom, and we're glad that they're here, and I applaud them and their grandchildren as well, right? So I got to admit, I don't know all of this on my own. I stole it from some clip files that Gayla gave me. All right? Ken goes to the U of M Law School. Gayla had to work with this guy for 16, 17 years. I mean, I'll give Rachel credit for being married to him for 45, but Gayla also had to work with him. Oh, you're blushing, Gayla. Yes, Gayla, stand up. I want to.
You're going to have to stop it for a minute because they forgot about Bob, so you'll have to come back.
Okay. So I'll introduce them. Yeah? Okay. All right. This is all a build-up to Bob Tilson, who's going to introduce Ken. All right. This is a wonderful family. You'll never meet a nicer group of people. But before I introduce Bob, I'm going through my litany because I'm not coming on a 4th time. All right. Ken, yeah, I know you're disappointed. All right. Ken joins Robbins, Davis, and Lyons. The classic Ken Tilson story is his first assignment as a lawyer. is go to the courthouse and prove up the administration of a will. Ken neither knows where the courthouse is, nor what is the administration of a will. But somehow he does it. And he goes through the 50s where he's defending people against the HUAC and the McCarthy investigations to himself in the mid-60s, having to meet the HUAC investigation, and he met him head on, like he has done everything in his damn life. He didn't take the Fifth Amendment. He met him on due process grounds. Who are you asking me questions about who's loyal and who's right? Right? He's done that. This has been Ken Tilson's in-your-face attitude his whole life. He's always fought for what he believes is right. And he didn't start with HUAC, but that sort of proved it. In any case, I met him, I love this, Liberation Coalition. Ken, we love you. But my first introduction to Ken, I'm the treasurer of the Liberation Coalition, which is defending the three people who from the Afro-American Action Committee who have occupied Morrill Hall. And I meet Ken. I am just this sort of wet behind the ears college kid who is just gaga-eyed at meeting this lawyer in the courthouse saying, Ken, hi. I'm Bill Tilton. I'm the treasurer for the Liberation Coalition. Ken says, hi, how you doing? How much money you got? Like every other cause we had no money. No money at all. I mean, you know, this is all just steps in the stairway to heaven, sort of. Ken Tilson representing the Afro-American Action Committee, Morrill Hall defendants. Professor Elkati, who was here, was represented by Ken. In those days, the Vietnam War took everybody's attention, and he represented one draft resistor after another. The Twin Cities Draft Information Center would send out his name sort of like it was graffiti. We'd just give his name, Ken Tilson. Right? I remember the Spiro Agnew demonstration. 45 kids were arrested. Ken Tilson, I was gaga-eyed at this, walked into the St. Paul police station and got 45 kids out on his name. He says, I know, they'll all appear. I'm going to get them out. Ken Tilson got him out. Man, that's power. Was one of the Minnesota 8. This was Ken Tilson who introduced Dan Ellsberg to the Twin Cities and to the world long before the Pentagon Papers were introduced to the world. Dan Ellsberg was asking Ken Tilson, what do I say? Right? When do I testify? Where do I go? Honeywell Project has been one of his many clients over time, Marv Davidoff, and many other people there. Nixon's COINTELPRO list, how many of us made it? Ken made it, okay. 1973, wounded knee, I've always, there's wonderful people, Mark Lane, Larry Leventhal, Bill Kunstler, all sorts of people who worked like crazy. Ken, we forgive you for Mark Lane. We don't blame Mark Lane on you. It's about to go over. All right. Groundswell, Slam, the Powerline protesters, Paul Sobeskinski, the P9 Hormel workers, Peter Matheson versus David Price, visited Nicaragua. All right. The Hudson Dog Tracks, Andy Pappas, Hamlin Law School. Thanks, George. Listen, he's also one of the regular guys. He's a true lawyer. He could do anything in addition to all this political stuff. But I'll tell you what defined him more than anything. Again, I'm going to take you back to southern Chile at the Biobío River. We're standing around the campfire when these guys sort of ask, well, who are you people? What are you doing down here? Ken Tilson says nothing about any of this. He says, hi, I'm Ken Tilson, and I got 19 grandchildren. This is his self-definition. I got 19 grandchildren. I am so proud of my family. He has mentored a generation of activists, lawyers and non-lawyers a lot. I've been given the time, so I'm not going to read all your names, all right? But I'll tell you, he's the best guy and the best lawyer I can ever imagine meeting. The best friend you could ever have, the best mentor you could ever want. Clarence Darrow's got nothing on you. We love you, all right? And I want to in order to introduce Ken, we got to introduce Bob, because in order to understand Ken, you got to understand Bob. We love you, Bob, too.
Good evening, friends. Good evening, the Tilson family, and good evening, Ken and Rachel. I am Bob's brother, Bob Tilson, And when people ask if I'm... I know it. Ken's brother. When people ask... Okay, if people ask me if I'm Ken Tilson's brother, I always answer proudly. If I can be sure that they're not carrying a weapon, you bet I am. I'd like to tell you about Ken's childhood, but fortunately I don't remember anything about it. As a teenager, Ken was an enthusiastic member of some Jewish youth group that went around yelling, "BOE, BOE." No one ever knew what it meant or what they stood for, but Ken yelled BOE with utter dedication and conviction. Sorry, I didn't mean to mention the word conviction in the presence of so many of Ken's clients. What I meant to say was that Ken, even back then, did everything with the fullest enthusiasm. Ken goes all the way. Ken and I shared a bedroom as children, and when we were older, we worked together for our father, Ed Tilson, in building homes. Ken was so bad with hammer and nails that he spent most of his time sweeping floors. But that wasn't the only time Ken had trouble with aim. While Ken is famous for being a vocal fan at sporting events, he also had his quiet side. He's very patient. We used to take our boys, David and Danny and Scott and Jim, out on a boat and sit with our hooks and lines in the water, and we'd sit and sit and sit on the boat until finally Danny asked Ken. He used to call his dad by his first name. "Ken, why do we call this fishing? Danny never did see a fish." Now, some of you may have looked at all the pictures around here in the back, and you see a lot of fish, and Ken and I did catch a lot of big fish and small fish. But one record Ken has, he has a record for the most time in a boat without catching fish. Ken is well respected by many, especially those who don't know him well. More importantly, Ken was always treated with great respect by our parents. While our mother, Esther Tilson, would remind me to comb my hair up until her final years, she gave up telling Ken to comb his 30 years ago. And whenever Dad needed advice, he always asked Ken first. Of course, Dad usually took other advice, but he always asked Ken first. And Ken's wife, Rachel, and his children treat him with great respect. A few years ago, anyway, talking about the hardships that go along with age, Ken noted how sad it is when people don't even know the names of their own children. "If I ever get to the point where I don't know your names," he said to his children, "I want you to take me out to the backyard and shoot me." And out of respect for his father's wish, Mark went right away and got his rifle, or was it Danny? Now that Ken is supposedly retiring from his legal practice, we've heard a lot about what he's going to do. And as was mentioned, Ken and I probably over the last few years have ate lunch 2 or 3 times a week when I could get him away. And if we haven't had lunch, I've at least seen him 3 or 4 times every week. You may not know, however, that Ken has begun a book. It's about the basic skills of being a lawyer. And Ken says that when he finishes that one, he plans to read another one. But Ken and Rachel, you know I love you. And Ken, come on up. It's your turn now.
Very good. Very funny.
Ken, come on up and Bill, will you tell me again why we're doing this?
You'll know in the morning when you feel so good.
Yeah, I know. I have a few notes here, and I'm trying to decide whether or not to use them. I normally don't write any notes at all, but with the fact that you, as many of you noted, I'm not really a very emotional person, and under these kind of emotional circumstances, I think I need a little bit of a crutch. I've said many times that that really all I am I owe to my clients, and I owe to the opportunities that the various people have given me. And on other occasions we've spoke at great length about what it's meant to me to have these opportunities. But I did think I would comment, appropriate to the occasion, to some of what might be called the lesser opportunities that representing the clients have given me. Not necessarily the low points, but some of the oddities. The people spoke about the opportunity I had to represent the students of the Afro-American Action Committee who entered Morrill Hall. That gave me the opportunity to be a subject of the J. Edgar Hoover and the COINTELPRO efforts to disrupt my life by writing phony letters to various prosecuting authorities about me from the FBI. That was one of the opportunities. It's supposed to be funny, maybe it isn't, but it wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Bill has commented on the opportunities that he and the other Minnesota 8 gave me when they managed to enter some of the offices of the draft board, and somehow their planning did not take into account that the FBI would be waiting there as they broke the 1A key and jumped out of the room saying, "Surprise, surprise, here we are." They had their planning included, if not removing matters from the draft board, the mimeograph material in the trunks of their cars that says why we destroyed the draft board records today. We could have won the case if we could have ever figured out what they were doing with the laundry bags. But the wonderful part of the opportunity that case gave me was to stand beside Bill at the sentencing when it was a question of what sentence the judge was going to impose. He turned to the U.S. Marshal and said, "Harry, you would make a good SS trooper." And then he turned to now deceased Judge Edward Devitt and said, "And Judge Devitt, you follow orders like all good Germans." What a shock it was when he got the maximum sentence.
It's all your fault.
It was all my fault. The lessons of Wounded Knee were many, but one of the greatest lessons I learned at Wounded Knee was when to talk and when to keep your mouth shut. Was that a hint? I did come out of Wounded Knee the day one of the marshals were shot, and in the custody or in the back seat of a car driven by the chief of the U.S. Marshal Service, who was in charge of the marshals, as we went by a roadblock by goons who were armed in an extremely dangerous situation. The goons pulled guns on the U.S. Marshal and his guys riding shotgun, and they passed a few words. And one of the marshals said to the chief, "You know, we really should do something about this goon roadblock." And I, at that point, had about 125 clients who had been indicted for interference with federal marshals in the course of a civil disorder.
And so I said to the chief marshal, well, you could see if they could get these guys indicted, at which point he slammed on the brakes and threw open the door and said, get out. We were about 20 feet from the goon block. I learned very quickly that there are times when it's better to keep your mouth shut. So that's one of the lessons that those clients taught me. I also remember with some less than fondest memories the drive through the blizzard to Fargo to try to get Angie and Ivis Longvisitor out of jail where they had been illegally imprisoned for no reason at all in connection with the Peltier case. The Highway 94 was blocked, and the roads were closed. I had a Jeep, and we drove right through it and went all the way up there to find that the marshals would not bring the prisoner 15 miles away. So that gave me the opportunity to learn that there are times when you can just stay home. Most of the other lessons that I've learned are pretty much the same thing. To my friends in the Honeywell project, that's already been mentioned, that I learned the glories of being arrested and subsequently being arrested for blocking a sidewalk on where I wasn't standing at a time when there was nobody on the sidewalk at all. And ultimately, along with now Judge Bush being the subject of inquiries by the director of the Board of Professional Responsibility, and having the marvelous opportunity to have our Supreme Court, in response to our efforts to criticize the board for their inappropriate contact and questioning of our behavior, the Supreme Court decided that there was no investigation, there was no file opened on us. So I now have the glory if somebody asks me, have I ever been the subject of an investigation or complaint by the Board of Professional Responsibility of the state of Minnesota? I have in the unusual position of being able to say, I have a letter from the Supreme Court that says I was never investigated or the subject of an inquiry. I have a number of similar things that I've jotted down that are sort of unusual road marks in my career, and we've all been sitting a long time. I think I'll pass to the latest glorious phase of my and current glorious phase of my professional life, in which I now have the opportunity, along with a number of other lawyers here in the city, of defending members of the committee that Clyde spoke about, the National Committee to End Racism in Sports and the Media. We have had the experience in this misdemeanor disturbing the peace case of spending 5 days without so much as getting a jury picked or questioning more than a couple of witnesses. Now, for you who are lawyers, that is an almost impossible task, but 5 days in court and nothing happening. It's at that high point in my career that I have take your salutes to my accomplishments. And tell you that I really love you all. Lastly, and I'd like to say that there's nothing I can say to you that could fully express the extent to which nothing that I have accomplished would be possible without my family, particularly without Rachel, without the support, without everything that she has meant through our, I think it's 46 years of marriage. No? 40, some more or less, and also the great the great joy and pride I have in the accomplishments and of all of my children and my grandchildren. I love all of you, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.